My friend and I spent over a month gearing up for a duck hunting excursion in 1996. Our destination? A spot nestled between Barton City and Glenny within the Huron-Manistee National Forest in northern Lower Michigan. The journey itself was an adventure, with nearly a 3-hour drive from home followed by a 2-mile trek into the woods where we'd establish camp and fortify our duck blind if necessary. The weekend prior, we'd already laid the groundwork, strategically placing corner poles and arranging logs for seating, all wrapped in camouflage burlap material. Opting out of decoys due to the distance and the natural flyway of ducks, we embraced the challenge of shooting passing ducks, finding it far more exhilarating than the conventional decoy setup. Arriving later than planned, we found ourselves backpacking in the darkness, an unexpected twist. Somewhere along the way, I stumbled, seemingly struck by an invisible force rather than tripping over anything visible in the beam of my flashlight. Despite the late arrival, we managed to set up camp and retire for the night, relying on a wind-up alarm clock to rouse us before dawn. With the first light, we hastily completed our duck blind preparations, ensuring everything was in place before the legal shooting hours commenced. Adherence to shooting regulations was paramount. Any infringement could result in hefty fines. As we settled into our blind, immersing ourselves in the sounds of the forest, a sudden splash shattered the tranquility. Intrigued, we watched as a figure swiftly navigated the swamp, moving with an unnatural speed. Given the depth and hazards of the swamp, it defied logic for any human, especially someone of my friend's stature, to traverse it. Not to mention the racket such a maneuver would create, alerting every duck in the vicinity to our presence. About a year later, a buddy of mine and I embarked on a trout fishing adventure roughly 2 miles north of our previous duck hunting escapade. It was a departure from the norm for my friend, who rarely ventured far from his wife's watchful eye. So this trip held a special significance for both of us. We meticulously prepared for the camping excursion, spending about a week gathering supplies and fine-tuning our plans. Our mode of transport? A canoe mounted on a custom-built cart, designed specifically for this purpose. Laden with camping gear and fishing equipment, we trekked back to the lake, unloaded the canoe, and paddled across to one of the secluded campsites. Setting up camp was a breeze, and soon it was time to indulge in some evening jig fishing for rainbow trout. The first night was a success, with plentiful catches, although my friend may have overindulged in whiskey, leaving me to enjoy a leisurely smoke and a glass of wine. The next morning, nursing a hangover, I ventured into town for supplies, stumbling upon some early morel mushrooms along the way. Back at camp, Jeff was still feeling the effects of his excess, so I took charge of cooking dinner, frying up the trout and mushrooms. Convincing Jeff to join me for another fishing session that evening proved challenging, but I insisted we make the most of our trip. Despite his protests, we anchored up and started fishing. However, the night didn't yield the same fruitful catches, leading Jeff to lament his hangover even more. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the forest, signaling something large and heavy nearby. My mind raced to the possibility of a bear drawn by the scent of our cooking trout. The sound continued intermittently, each one bringing the imagined scenario closer to reality. Just as I anticipated another break, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, followed by a guttural growl. Half in jest, I called out to Jeff, teasing him about the impending bear attack. But what followed was far more terrifying, a monstrous being, moving on 2 legs, running away from our direction. It took me hours to gather my wits and return to camp, where Jeff was shaken but unharmed. We packed up hastily the next morning, eager to leave the eerie encounter behind us. Back in civilization, we rarely discussed the incident, but when we did, Jeff confirmed every detail. It was a story that lingered, etched in our memories, forever altering our perceptions of the wilderness, night of the Chupacabra. As the campfire crackled under the vast Texas sky, casting flickering shadows on the faces of my friends, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in my gut. We were a group of 5, avid campers with a penchant for adventure, but tonight something felt different. Little did we know our camping trip was about to take a chilling turn. Nestled in the heart of the Texas wilderness, our campsite seemed like the perfect getaway from the hustle and bustle of city life. Yet as darkness enveloped the landscape and the sounds of nocturnal creatures filled the air, an ominous presence seemed to linger just beyond the glow of our campfire. We laughed and shared stories, trying to shake off the sense of foreboding that hung heavy in the air. But as the night wore on, our laughter turned to hushed whispers, our eyes darting nervously into the surrounding darkness. Suddenly, a blood-curdling howl pierced the night, causing us to jump to our feet in alarm. The sound was like nothing I'd ever heard before, a primal scream that sent shivers down my spine. And then, out of the shadows, emerged a creature straight from the depths of nightmares. With eyes that glowed like fiery coals and a mangy fur-covered body, the beast stood before us, its snarling lips revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. It was a Chupacabra, a creature of legend said to feast on the blood of livestock and humans alike. Panic swept through our group as we scrambled for weapons, but before we could react, the Chupacabra lunged forward with lightning speed. In the chaos that ensued, my friend's beloved dog, Max, leaped to defend us, barking ferociously at the creature. But the Chupacabra was relentless, its claws tearing through Max's fur as he bravely fought to protect us. With a sickening crunch, the creature's jaws closed around Max's throat, silencing his valiant cries in an instant. Heartbroken and filled with rage, we unleashed a barrage of makeshift weapons upon the Chupacabra, driving it back into the darkness from whence it came. But the damage had been done, and as we knelt beside Max's lifeless body, tears streaming down our faces, we knew that our carefree camping trip would never be the same. In the eerie silence that followed, we made a solemn vow to never forget the sacrifice that Max had made to save us. And as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, we gathered our belongings and left the wilderness behind, haunted by the memory of that fateful night and the bloodthirsty beast that had crossed our path. As we trudged away from the campsite, the weight of grief and fear hung heavy upon us. Each step seemed to echo with the memory of Max's valiant struggle against the Chupacabra, his loyal spirit lingering among the trees that whispered tales of ancient legends and unseen dangers. Despite our resolve to leave the wilderness behind, the image of the bloodthirsty creature haunted my dreams that night. I tossed and turned beneath the thin canvas of my tent, the darkness alive with imagined horrors and the mournful howls of distant coyotes. Morning brought little solace as we packed up our gear, our once jubilant spirits dampened by the specter of loss that lingered in the air. Max's absence was palpable, a void in our midst that no amount of laughter or camaraderie could fill. As we made our way back to civilization, the memory of our encounter with the Chupacabra weighed heavily upon us, a grim reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wild. Yet amidst the sorrow and uncertainty, there flickered a spark of resilience, a determination to honor Max's memory by facing whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and unity. And though the wounds of that fateful night may never fully heal, we carried with us the lessons learned in the crucible of adversity, bound together by the unbreakable bonds of friendship and the enduring spirit of adventure that had brought us to the Texas wilderness in the first place. As we left the wilderness behind, I couldn't help but cast a backward glance at the shadowed trees that had borne witness to our ordeal. In their depths I sensed the presence of something ancient and primal, a reminder that the world was far more vast and mysterious than we could ever hope to comprehend. And though our encounter with the Chupacabra had left its mark upon us, I knew that it was merely a chapter in the ongoing saga of our lives, a tale of courage and resilience in the face of unspeakable darkness. With one last glance over my shoulder, I turned my gaze forward, the road stretching out before us like a promise of new beginnings, and as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its golden light upon the path ahead, I felt a glimmer of hope stirring within my heart, a whisper of possibility amidst the ruins of our shattered innocence. WolfMan Moonlit Terror. As the campfire crackled and cast dancing shadows around our small circle of friends, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Perhaps it was just the eerie ambiance of the dense forest surrounding us, or maybe it was the stories we had heard earlier about the legendary wolfman that supposedly roamed these woods. Whatever it was, it sent shivers down my spine. We were a group of 6, all college friends seeking adventure in the great outdoors. Little did we know we were about to get more adventure than we bargained for. It was nearing midnight when we heard the first howl, a chilling sound that echoed through the trees, causing us all to exchange nervous glances. "It's probably just a coyote," someone muttered, but deep down we all knew it was something more sinister. As the fire began to dwindle, I volunteered to gather more firewood from the edge of the clearing. I grabbed a flashlight and headed out into the darkness, my heart pounding with each step. The forest seemed alive with unseen eyes, watching my every move. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind me, and I spun around, my flashlight beam trembling in the darkness. What I saw froze me in place. A pair of glowing yellow eyes followed by a low growl that sent chills down my spine. Without a second thought, I turned and sprinted back to the safety of the campsite, my friends' faces blurring past me in a panic. "What's wrong? What did you see?" they shouted, but I couldn't find the words to answer. As I stumbled into the clearing, I tried to catch my breath, my heart still racing from the encounter. "There's something out there," I gasped, trying to convey the terror I had just experienced. Before anyone could respond, a guttural snarl pierced the night air, and we all turned to see a towering figure emerge from the shadows, a creature straight from our worst nightmares. It was the WolfMan, as real as the legends had described, a monstrous hybrid of man and beast, its fur matted and its eyes burning with feral rage. In that moment, all pretense of bravery evaporated, and we were reduced to terrified children huddling together for safety. The WolfMan circled us slowly, its gaze locking onto each of us in turn, as if deciding which of us would be its first victim. My mind raced with fear as I realized just how defenseless we were against this primal predator. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the WolfMan vanished back into the darkness, leaving us trembling and shaken, but miraculously unharmed. We huddled together until dawn, too afraid to sleep, knowing that the beast could return at any moment. As the first light of morning broke through the trees, we packed up our camp in record time, eager to leave this cursed place behind us. Though we never spoke of that night again, the memory of the WolfMan would haunt us for the rest of our days, a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkness of the wilderness.